Welcome. Let's start. For whoever just joined, warm welcome. This is Federica, part of the Docsity team, and it is my pleasure to welcoming you all to this live webinar at HKBU School of Business. Connected with us, we have the pleasure to have two professors, the Professor Prendergast and the Professor Huang, but we also have the pleasure to have two alumni, Mary and Gary, which I'd like to thank for their time and for their testimonials. Before diving deep into the presentation, just wanted to remind you all that you can type all of your questions into the Q&A box. We will be answering at the end of the presentation, but we're going to start first to share with you a small video which gives you a little bit of an overview of HKBU School of Business. And then we'll resume back with the presentation. Cool. Let's see. Be able to share it now.
Calling the ambitious. Calling those who want to elevate their career. Calling the leaders and public speakers. Calling mentees looking for a mentor. Calling those who want to learn real skills for the workplace from a triple accredited institution. Calling the passionless to be passionate. Calling those who crave a truly international experience. We're calling you. Will you answer?
Nice, great. So ready to start with our presentation. Happy to leave the floor to the Professor Huang, and we're looking forward to receiving all of your questions into the Q&A box. Professor, I leave you the floor. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hello everyone, and let me share my PowerPoint. So I think my presentation will be around 20 minutes or less. Basically, there are two parts. The first part is the mini seminar, and the second part is I'm going to talk a little bit about our program, 1 hour programs. So this mini seminar is just to showcase how at HKBU professors try to bring cutting-edge scientific research into classrooms. So I'm a researcher. So my main research area is the leadership. Today I just talk a little bit about a very small area of my research on leadership. The title is Making Sense of Nonsense, Reading the Minds of Top Leaders. Basically, this is about how to read the minds of top leaders, national leaders, and CEOs. Because of the advancement of AI, artificial intelligence, nowadays, researchers in business schools and researchers in social science have started to understand more about leadership, leadership influence. So I just show you a few studies, including one of my own, how we do it, right? So we know great leaders are all great speakers, right? Through their inspiring speech, we know about their thinking, we know about their mindsets and their values. But increasingly, we know from leadership research that it's not just a speech ability. It's leaders. We can discover leaders' mindsets and their thinking through other ways. Especially, we can use nowadays, especially in the last 10 years, we started to use artificial intelligence to understand more about the thinking of our leaders, of the great leaders. So there are 3 ways we can understand more about them. One is through their written messages, okay? The other is through observing their emotion, right? And also through the news interviews. So one thing, the written message, leaders write a lot of things, right? They write about their views, and their company and their nation. For example, let me give you one. Imagine that your firms are going to bankrupt, and what will you communicate to your shareholders? This is a research question raised by researchers almost 30 years ago. They published a paper in Top Management Journal, and they study the letters to shareholders. When your firm, when all the public, listed firms have a problem, financial problem, the CEOs normally are expected to write a letter to shareholders. So these researchers discovered that they can predict the firm's survival or not survival chances by looking at the written letters, because what the leaders wrote about reflect their thinking. What they found is that those firms who are facing financial problems, which are also survived later on, their CEOs in their letters talk a lot about both internal and external factors. They consider input rather than output, the investment and the resources rather than the outcomes, the performance. So these firms are more likely to survive because the CEOs of these firms tend to look at the firm's problems from a broader perspective. Okay, so they have a higher chance to survive. The losers, they ignore output, and they only focus on internal, very narrowly on internal factors, right? So they fail. So these are the very, very early studies of how we can interpret leaders' mindsets through their written messages. This is research I'm doing. I've been doing this research for 2 years. I study national leaders with my team during COVID-19. So we actually try to understand how leaders react to COVID-19 crisis in 144 countries. We study all the national leaders, all right? So what we try to understand is that we try to understand the emotions of these leaders by reading their text messages in Twitter. So we use artificial intelligence to interpret whether the text messages sent out are positive or negative, in terms of sentiments, whether they contain positive sentiments or negative sentiments, especially in the first week of COVID-19. So in our data sets, we have all the national leaders, most of the national leaders, including Boris Johnson, including Donald Trump, including the Italian Prime Minister, French, so French president. So we collect their Twitter. These are open information, and we use artificial intelligence to read it. So what we found, what we try to understand is that our theory is that the first week, if the leaders sent certain type of message to the nation, that message would have a huge impact on the national readiness to confront, to deal with this crisis. So naturally, most people predict that if the leaders send more positive messages like we'll be okay, we win, and this is going to be okay, and the other type of message they send out could be this is going to be bad, be careful, cautious. So based on the common sense, many of people predict that the positive sentiments would help the nation to confront the crisis better. Our results is totally opposite. What we found is that if the national leaders send too much positive messages through their Twitter, that nation's spread of disease is much faster. If they're sending out more negative sentiments to the nation, the spread of disease is much slower, all right? So the theory is this: in such a big crisis, if the leader can warn the nation, alert the nation, many of the people will be ready, to do something to confront, to prepare for the worst. That will slow down the spread of disease. This is exactly what we found. We actually can predict the first week Twitter message can predict next 30 days spread of business, okay, in all the nations, okay. But we also found there's differences between democratic and non-democratic societies. So leaders' message would have an influence on national performance on combating COVID-19 cases only in democratic societies, because only in the democratic societies, people listen to the leaders, right? So the dotted line is the democratic societies. In the non-democratic societies, they're on average, they have more cases. The spread of disease is more serious than democratic societies, but there's no strong influence from leaders' Twitter messages. Okay, this already showcase how leaders' message would influence the nation and the people. And also, there's another study, not by ourselves. This is by some other researchers in the US. They actually study CEOs' emotion using artificial intelligence. And they also categorize CEOs' emotion into positive and negative emotion. And what they did is that they actually show that the CEO's emotion, this 200 some CEOs' emotion, can predict that their share prices, okay? Before the ICO, initial coin offering, that's some companies offer this digital currency. So before they offer digital currency, they have to give some messages out. And so basically they use AI to read this CEO's emotion. And they found that if their emotion is too negative, that would make their price much lower, right? Things like that, because people don't believe the CEO. This is another study showing that how we can read a CEO's mind. The last one is interviews. So nowadays, leaders, national leaders, and the CEOs have been frequently invited to do some news interviews, TV interviews. And last year, a group of US researchers studied these interviews. And they actually, every interview is 1 hour long. There's a lot of messages, there are a lot of information in those interview scripts, and they use artificial intelligence to categorize those CEOs into different types of communication styles. Let me show you how they actually, this is produced by AI, artificial intelligence. Some CEOs, their communication styles are excitable, right? They are consistently positive language, fearful and surprised, right? Some are stern, they are more angry, right? Disgusted facial expression, and some CEOs, communication is dramatic. They are very happy, very unhappy, so they fluctuate a lot. Rumbling, they just keep talking, right? And then the last one, melancholy. So this is what they found is that the excitable and dramatic communication style would have a much stronger impact on shareholders' reactions to the company. So I want to stop here because I have other things. So the take-home message from this mini seminar is that because of the advance of technology in business schools, when we do cutting-edge research, we use a lot of artificial intelligence and more technology, and we discover a lot more than previous than before. So what we learn is that we now know that the choice of phrase is so important, okay, for leader in their speech, in their written messages. Managing emotion is increasingly important because nowadays people can see you. They can see your picture, they can see your video clips. So managing emotion is so crucial for top leaders, national leaders, and CEOs. And communication styles matters increasingly more, right? All right, so I want to stop here. This is just an example how we talk about research and share some information, new knowledge with our students. So before the end of my talk, I want to briefly 3-4 minutes to talk about this program, MSc in Business Management in HKBU Business School. This program is ranked top 100 in the world, a Financial Times ranking. Across all these different categories, we rank alumni achievement top 11 in the world, global alumni career progression top 30, 31, 31st, and 33rd in terms of salary. So our students graduate from this program among the best in the world in terms of career progression. They make quite a lot of money, right? So this MScBM is like a mini MBA, but we just the students do not have much experience. Many of them are fresh graduates. They can come to study. The curriculum is very similar to MBA, and we have students coming from all over the world. Increasingly, there are more international students in recent years. So you are here. We are welcome to consider our program. Not only this program, but also our school. All right. So these are the curriculum, but you can if you're interested, you can go to our website. I don't go through it. But the most important feature of this program is the capstone business project. At the end of the day, every student needs to form a group to resolve a real world problem. So in this program, we have around 25 to 30 sponsor companies. So the students need to go to these companies and work with the senior executives of those companies to resolve a real problem. They need to spend 5 to 8 months in those companies in the Greater Bay Area in China, in Hong Kong, in the Guangdong area, in sometimes potentially in other close by Asian countries. But currently, most of the firms are in Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. So you have a good chance to work with with senior executives on the real problem, right? And completing the final dissertation. So these are the industries we cover. And another feature of our program is that because we have a close connection with the local firms, big and small, medium-sized firms, and the students have a lot of opportunities to visit these firms, and they even need to go to these firms to study the problems facing by these firms. And also, we have a lot of webinar-based series inviting business leaders, political leaders, and whatever, whoever we think can help our students to learn more about business and the local culture to give seminars. So many of these seminars are pretty popular. And our students, after they graduate, some of them stay in Hong Kong. Because many students came from the mainland China, they went back to China, the mainland China, to work. And so these are the industries where they work after graduation, quite diverse. All right. So so if you are interested in the entry requirement and stuff, you can go to our website to have a check. And so these are two different. You can find in our website. So basically, we have already complete many waves of interviews. If you're interested, you should quickly go to our website to register. All right. So this is all what I want to say, and I look forward to your questions and comments later. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor, for sharing this with us. We're really starting to receive the first questions. Great. Keep writing them into the Q&A box, and we'll be able to get back to you towards the end of the webinar. There'll be a dedicated time. But then moving on into our next speaker, as we said at the very beginning, we have the pleasure to have with us some alumni of HKBU School of Business. So it's my pleasure to give the floor to Gary. So Gary is currently digital specialist at DBS Bank and will tell us more about his experience.
Thank you, Federica. I'll quickly share my screen first. Okay, perfect. Great. So yeah, thanks again. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us wherever in the world you guys are from. So my name is Gary. Federica already said that. I studied my Master of Science in Business Management degree back in 2016 and 2017, actually. So it's been a few years since then already. I'm currently at DBS Bank as a digital specialist. And in the upcoming few minutes, I'll just quickly share what my experience was like while I was a student there. And during these few minutes, aside from talking about my experience, I'll also kind of give you some explanations in terms of why I think Hong Kong is a good choice and why I chose Hong Kong. And in terms of the experience itself, what are the three biggest impacts that I felt the experience has had in not only my life, but also the trajectory and direction that it has had in terms of my career and other aspects. Before we get to that though, just a little bit about me. So I'm actually from Canada. I was born and raised in a city called Edmonton. So if you look at the bottom left corner of the Canadian map here, where there's a red box and the yellow circle, that is where Edmonton is, and that is where I'm from. The city itself, in terms of major industries, is mostly in oil and gas. Estimated population is a little under 1 million. So substantially smaller than bigger cities like Hong Kong, but it's home, you know. And a fun little fact about the city, Edmonton, is that we have an unofficial nickname called Deadmonton. The reason for that is two. One is because we actually have the second highest homicide rate in the country. But the second reason is actually we are known to be quite a very boring city, unless you're really interested in like winter sports and stuff like that. So coming from and growing up in a really boring city, unfortunately, I've always felt that I've had a limited vision in terms of what the world is like and what the world out there had to offer. So early on, after my undergrad back in Canada, I've had this goal, and that was to get out into the world before I settle down and see what exactly is out there. And that leads into why I chose Hong Kong. I chose Hong Kong to be the place where I would, in essence, see what the world is like for a few reasons. One being that Hong Kong is an international city. And for somebody like me who really wanted to travel around, especially in Asia, to see, all these Asian experiences that I've been missing out on while I was growing up in the other side of the world, Hong Kong is also a very convenient place to do all this traveling. But also the local culture here is super dynamic, super vibrant. And one of the best factors that I think adds like the most bonus points is the food. The food here is super good. It's super diverse. And I also think it's a lot cheaper than other places in the world as well. So coming from somebody like me who really, really likes food, I'm a self-professed foodie, these are all good reasons why I chose Hong Kong. All the fun stuff aside though, from more of a business angle, I also feel that Hong Kong is very strategically positioned in the Greater Bay Area. And I do think that going forward into the future, there's also going to continue to be a lot of opportunities and potential within the city itself. So all these reasons, put together is basically the reason why I chose Hong Kong. And the first, reason for me being able to come to Hong Kong to begin with was actually I was looking for internships that would allow me to take my first steps here, and I landed an internship back in 2015, and I've basically been in Hong Kong ever since. So actually it was during my internship that I first learned about these master's programs at HKBU, and while I was doing my internship, it was actually some of the staff at HKBU that reached out to me, and they actually suggested, maybe you should try looking into these programs. We also have scholarships that you might be applicable for, so feel free to take a look at them and apply if you're interested. One of the first reasons why I felt that my experience at HKBU had a big impact on my life, though, was because initially I didn't plan on doing a master's program so early on in my career. I felt I just finished my undergrad not too long ago. Maybe I should study or work a few more years before I did my master's program. But in the end, I'm really glad that they reached out to me and told me about all these programs and scholarships, because if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be where I am at now. Through this master's program, not only did I meet a lot of lifelong friends, made good networks, but the staff at HKBU, I personally felt were super supportive, and they really tried their best to make sure all the students, including myself, reach their fullest potential. And it's because of this support and quality that I felt, I was able to do well in my studies. And by doing, well in my studies and by meeting all these great people, I also gained the confidence in knowing that when I'm, at my best, when I've reached my full potential, I can really achieve, whatever I set my mind to. So this is one of the first aspects of the master's program at HKBU that I felt, had a major impact on my life. And it's crazy to think that initially this was not part of my plan at all. I didn't plan on doing a master's program, but ultimately because of this master's program, it set my life in a direction that would have been completely different had I not done this, study at all. A second aspect of the program that I felt also had a big impact on my life is, the summer exchange programs. And you can see from the pictures here clearly that, I went to Europe for my summer exchange. But the funny thing is, also as part of my life goal or plan, I guess, I never really had any plans to go to Europe. My plan, as I mentioned before, was to travel Asia, see what the Asian experience is like. But not going to Europe initially as part of my plan was also because I didn't have any incentive or motivation to do so. So when I was studying at HKBU and I saw that they had these summer exchange programs all over the world, including Europe, suddenly it just felt like this is a calling. This is an opportunity that I never really anticipated or expected, but it's here now, and it's up to me, whether I want to take advantage of this opportunity or just let it slip by. So obviously I took the opportunity to go to Europe. Specifically, I actually went to Rome in Italy for my summer exchange. But because I went to Italy and because all these European countries are so close together, what was initially, my experience in this master's program being in Hong Kong suddenly included 5 additional countries because I was able to travel all over the place while I was on this summer exchange. So you can see me eating a pizza while I was in Italy, Pizza dell'Intera Pisa. I was drinking beer in Munich, and you can see I've also been in Paris, London, as well as Amsterdam. So altogether, this was an experience that I definitely did not regret doing, and given a chance, I would also do it all over again as well. So second aspect of my experience was, this also opened up my eyes to a bigger worldview that I never expected as well. Finally, the third thing, though, in terms of my experience at HKBU, it also had a huge impact in terms of my aspirations and how I eventually, took my direction in my career. So, back in Canada, I was actually a business student, and when I did my Master's of Science in Business Management, you would think, these are business-oriented. Maybe I would, be doing a job in business. And that was also kind of, what I initially expected of myself back when I was younger as well. Maybe I would get a generic business job, doing generic business things. Never really had a super big ambitions in terms of where my career would take me. But, doing well in my studies, knowing what I can achieve when I've reached my potential and all that, it gave me the confidence to basically take my career in directions that I never really would have considered at all to begin with. So never in a million years back then would I have expected that I would now be working in the areas of technology and digital innovation in a bank. But, alas, that's where I'm at now. And over the past 4 years, not only have I done that, but I've also been an IT consultant as part of the an IT consultancy called FDM Group. And as I mentioned before, now I'm at DBS Bank, where every day these days I work with the risk management department and their people in order to help them become more digitized and innovative. And these are areas that once again, never in a million years would I have expected myself working in. But that all changed thanks to my experience at HKBU, the support of their staff, and just helping me realize, what I'm capable of when I really set my mind to something, and and all that. So for that, I'll always be thankful. And for all the students or potential students listening to this now, if you guys have the opportunity, definitely take hold of it. If you get in and those exchange programs, take a look at them. And maybe you'll see something that works out for you, and hopefully going forward in the future, you'll come to appreciate this opportunity just like I am now. And that's about it. I think I only had 10 minutes to go through, so hopefully it wasn't too fast for you guys. But here's some contact information in case you guys want to reach out to me with any questions. My LinkedIn is there, as well as my email. And that's about it. So Federica, back to you.
Thank you so much, Gary. Thank you so much. Thanks also for sharing your contact details with the audience. Just for you all, Gary will also be connected with us toward the end to answer all the questions that you might have. So feel free to drop questions into the Q&A box, as I can see you already started to do. But together with Gary, we also have the pleasure to have Mary with us. So she's currently Key Account Manager e-commerce at Carrier Logistics, and I'd like to leave the floor so she can also tell us more about her experience.
Hi, Frederica. Thank you for the introduction. And let me just share my screen. Just give me a minute. Okay.
Perfect.
I believe you all can see the screen right now. Yeah. So hi, everyone. My name is Mary Therese Paras. So I'm originally from the Philippines, and I graduated from the HKBU MSc in Business Management program back in 2017. So it's been almost 5 years now. And since then, I've been with the same company, Carrier Logistics. I was hired in Hong Kong just immediately after my last semester ended for their management trainee program. And since then, I've been relocated to Bangkok after spending a year doing management training in Hong Kong. And eventually, I believe that my company is also going to relocate me to another country after my stint here in Bangkok. So today, I'm just going to share with you 3 main points in the context, of course, of my experience as a student in Hong Kong Baptist University. So first, the leadership opportunities and management training that I had and experienced in HKBU. Second is all the transferable skills for the Southeast Asian business environment, which I acquired during my stay there as a student. And third, just a very short presentation on my insights on the e-commerce development in the Asia Pacific, especially new challenges and potentials for the region, which I believe would also be important for people who may want to pursue a career in the field. So moving on to my next slide. Okay, so firstly, leadership opportunities and management training at HKBU. This is actually just a compilation of all the photos I've had. Well, not all, some of the more important photos I've had during my experience as a student at HKBU. I think you could even see Gary in some of the photos, our earlier speaker. So in HKBU, they will really expose you to a lot of group activities and trainings. There will be a lot of case studies and competitions, as well as research papers, and you will definitely be having to be grouped with people from various nationalities and different cultures and different countries. If I'm not mistaken, during my time there in our class, in our MScBM class, we had people from around 9 or 10 different nationalities all together in one class. And in addition to that, we also had various exchange students from all over the world. So imagine that everyone from different countries all over the world in Hong Kong, the world city, which is a cultural hodgepodge of just about everything. So in terms of leadership opportunities and management training during my time as a master's student, it's definitely not lacking. The professors and even your student friends, your colleagues will be giving you the opportunity to learn. And it's also up to you to step up and to try your best to learn how to lead a team, to learn how to work with people from different cultures and to learn how to adapt to their different working styles. In terms of having professors and staff around you be of help, it's definitely always there. They're always available for you to ask for any help if you need it, any assistance. And I could attest to the fact that every single person I've encountered in HKBU has always been very approachable and helpful when it comes to you wanting to ask for their opinions, especially from professors who may have had numerous years of experience working in industry as well as the academe. So if you want to develop yourself, you're given not just, conceptual stuff to study out of books, you're also given the opportunity to have an experiential kind of learning by trying to solve real world problems, as mentioned earlier, and as well as being able to be given advice from people who have had the experience of doing it themselves for several years now, especially people from industry who've had that experience before and are in HKBU teaching you how to do it. Next up is the transferable skills for the Southeast Asian business environment. So these 2 photos side by side. On the left is my graduation photo with some of the friends I've made in HKBU. And on the right is my first day at work, actually, with Carrier Logistics. So on the right-hand side, we have management trainees who are hired, and we are from different countries as well. So I'm from the Philippines, and I have friends there from India, as well as Pakistan and Hong Kong. And to the left, you'd see us me from the Philippines again, and friends from Germany, Mexico, the Netherlands, and from Hong Kong. So as you can see from these two photos alone, you will have to, and you will get to experience talking to people and working with people from various cultural backgrounds, coming from different walks of life and different personalities. So I'm talking not just about the business environment in Southeast Asia, but the business environment as a whole. So HKBU, in a sense, helped me develop cultural awareness, teamwork, communication. I'm not going to go through detail for each of these points that I mentioned on my PowerPoint, but it helped me develop how I can adapt well to an ever-changing environment. It helped me develop a certain awareness of how different cultural nuances should be taken into account when making decisions, and how to approach people properly in this increasingly globalized world. So it also helped me. So this is just a very quick overview of my career progression at the moment. So initially I was hired in Hong Kong. Now I'm working in Thailand. My boss is in Singapore, and I might have to go for training in Singapore as well. And I'm originally from the Philippines, and I believe my company will also be relocating me to the Philippines soon enough. So as you can see, I have been all over. So thanks to HKBU, although there has been some major adjustments on my part as well, thanks to HKBU and all the people I've met and experienced during the program, it was easier for me to integrate into the different cultures that I've had to take into account whenever I had to move to different countries. So that's one very important takeaway that I believe everyone will be able to experience as well, in case you want to, if you plan to apply for a position or a place in our program. So you would learn how to talk to people, you would learn how to think strategically, in the sense that you're not just thinking about what you think is right, but you would also think about what other people's opinions are in the context of how they view their own culture and from where they're coming from in terms of their own personalities, work experiences, and backgrounds in life. And then, okay, so these are other photos of me as well. To the right is my team here in Thailand, in Bangkok, and to the left is also another photo of me and one of our clients while delivering parcels here in Thailand. So I work in the logistics industry. So I have been working with delivering parcels all over Thailand for the past 4 years now. So as you know, Thailand is also very culturally different from Hong Kong. So that's something that you have to take into consideration if you're planning to work in another country. And I believe that's one thing that you have to develop in the course of your studies in the program, if ever you do decide to apply. And I'm telling you, you should apply. Okay, now I'm just going to give you a very short insight and overview of e-commerce in Asia Pacific and the new challenges and potentials in the region, since this is the field that I have been working on for the past 3-4 years. So as you all know, something very unprecedented happened these past 3 years. COVID happened, one very global pandemic that totally changed the course of the lives of a lot of people and also disrupted numerous industries all over the globe. Now, as someone who works in the logistics industry, especially in the last mile part, meaning we deliver packages and parcels to end consumers, the growth of e-commerce was actually initially very good for us, since more online customers, more people stuck in their homes, more people online shopping means more parcels, and more parcels, well, means more money for us. But the thing is, that's not as directly as the case as you think as it may be, because the growth of e-commerce, the sudden growth of e-commerce due to COVID has also affected our capacity to deliver the best service that we could. So this was totally unexpected for the whole logistics industry as a whole, because the sudden rise of parcels that we have to deliver, this is just an example, just to give you an overview of how quickly you have to adapt to changes in the environment, overwhelmed our system. So we have a perfectly fine system in place, but with the rise of more deliveries, if you think it's just more money for us, then you're definitely wrong, because more deliveries, more parcels means more problems along the line as well. So why am I saying all of this? This is just something that I need to highlight, because all throughout your career, all throughout your time as a student, if you do end up getting into the program, you will encounter things like this, surprise occurrences and instances that will challenge your way of thinking, that will disrupt your way of thinking and your normal way of life, and that would force you to rethink how you should approach things. And I'm using this as an example, in the context of my experience in the past, to let you know that this is something that you should definitely learn and would definitely learn how to develop in the course of your studies by being able to be accustomed to numerous problems, real world problems, as well as case studies, and also by being able to encounter people who might have different insights that could open up your mind to various possibilities that you never thought were, well, in line with what you're thinking. So that's basically it. And I've just a little thing that I'd like to mention. I've seen some people ask questions about being in a different field and applying for the MScBM program. So I myself wasn't in the logistics industry, but I've spent the past 5 years working in it. So previously I was more focused on law and general management in the Philippines. So my background was definitely not in logistics, but through my studies, it opened up the opportunity for me to get to a totally different field, as well as get to experience studying in a totally different country altogether. Actually, not just country, but multiple countries altogether. So just want to say that by doing the program, it would definitely give you the tool to help yourself get the opportunity that you want, or get the opportunity that you thought might not have been possible before. So that is it for my presentation. I just want to do it very quickly. And if you want to contact me, here's my email and my LinkedIn. And thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this presentation. And thank you also to help us answering some of the questions that we received. And as mentioned, we also have the pleasure to have with us the Professor Prendergast, who is going to tell us more about HKBU School of Business. It's my pleasure to leave him the floor, and then we are ready to answer all of the questions that you might have during our presentation.
Thank you, Federica. Well, I was going to start off by talking about Hong Kong, but I think Gary and Therese have already talked about Hong Kong. And all I'll say is that I've been in Hong Kong for incredibly 25 years. And you would think after 25 years, I know Hong Kong very well, but I don't, because Hong Kong is always changing and evolving. And I think that's the attraction to Hong Kong, is that it is such a dynamic city. So I'll skip talking about Hong Kong and jump straight into some other stuff in my PowerPoint. Where are we? Can you see that okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about, just in less than 10 minutes, I think, introduce HKBU and the School of Business. And then talk about our commitment to internationalization. What I really mean here is our scholarships, which I guess a lot of you will be interested to hear about, our scholarships. And finally, some practical information for people, international students joining us in Hong Kong. So those are the three things to cover. So firstly, Hong Kong Baptist University, a publicly funded research-led liberal arts university, quite a mouthful. Let me break that down a little bit. Firstly, Baptist. We are not a Christian university. We are a publicly funded university with a Christian heritage. So that's different from being a Christian university. We welcome all beliefs and we welcome no beliefs. In fact, diversity of belief is important to us. We are publicly funded. Now, in other countries, it may be that the private universities are the higher quality universities and the public universities are lower quality. That is not the case in Hong Kong, because in Hong Kong, a publicly funded university is very well funded. There is a very generous government support for publicly funded universities in Hong Kong. So the higher ranking universities in Hong Kong tend to be publicly funded universities. We are research-led liberal arts. That's a little bit unusual because usually a liberal arts university will focus on just teaching. We do research as well. We are research-led, and we use that research to inform our teaching. So we are research-led liberal arts university. What is a liberal arts university? If you ask 10 people for a definition, you will get 10 different definitions. But basically for us, the liberal arts university means that we prepare students not just for a job, but for life. So beyond the first job as well, we prepare students for that. I think of our students as having graduates as having 4 quadrants. We want our graduates to be knowledgeable, skillful, socially responsible, and global in their thinking. So knowledgeable, skillful, socially responsible, and global in their thinking. We think that graduates from a liberal arts university is actually what today's employers are looking for. Graduates who have a lifelong learning perspective, who are open-minded, flexible, and adaptable. So our vision and mission, we are a leader in whole person business education. In Hong Kong, a number of universities claim to be delivering whole person education. We were the pioneer in Hong Kong. So we were the first ones in Hong Kong to lead with whole person education. As I said, we want our graduates to be, well, you don't want a graduate to be a half a person, do you? So I guess we all want to be whole people. But we have those 4 quadrants, the knowledgeable, skillful, socially responsible, and global in their mindset. We are a centre of excellence in business research in selected strategic areas. What we mean here is that we are a relatively small university. Our business school has around 3,000 students, which on a global basis is a relatively small business school. We cannot research everything, so we focus our research resources rather than diluting our resources. So we focus our research primarily on corporate sustainability, entrepreneurship, fintech, and data analytics. Corporate sustainability, entrepreneurship, fintech, and data analytics. Colleagues have academic freedom to do research on whatever they like. And thank you to Professor Su for showcasing that little bit of research at the beginning of this webinar. The colleagues are free to research whatever they like, but we do have a focus on these particular areas that I mentioned. A mission to nurture ethical leaders with global vision. So leaders are not followers, and leadership is the theme of our webinar tonight. And with global vision, we work very hard to internationalize the School of Business. When I became Associate Dean for Internationalization a few years ago, the vision in my mind was to develop a school where internationalization is our DNA, The hope is that one day we will not need an Associate Dean for Internationalization because it will already be who we are in our DNA. But we work very hard to build that DNA through our student body, through our faculty, through our curriculum, and through our research. Accreditations. Okay, now this may sound pretty boring and kind of back office sort of stuff. Let me tell you why accreditations is important for a business school. If you are ranked in the top 100 universities in the world, accreditations are less important because people know that university. It has a global brand perception. If you are not in the top 100, and we are not in the top 100 universities in the world, then international students, when they make an application, they may have more doubts about the quality of that university. So what I can tell you is that accreditations mean that we have hit international benchmarks. We have hit international standards. So you have that quality assurance when you apply to our School of Business. We have AACSB, ECRIS, and AMBER, the 3 most important accreditations in business. We are the only business school in Hong Kong, to have this triple accreditation. So as I said, it sounds a bit boring, but it's something we work very hard for, not just accreditation, but re-accreditation. And it gives you that quality assurance, that quality guarantee. Some other ranking information, as Professor Su mentioned, our MScBM program is ranked in the top 100, FT top 100. We're the oldest business school in Hong Kong. So we rank as the oldest. I guess that's a positive thing. We have a lot of experience. 25,000 alumni and growing. And our alumni are very active in helping students to get a step into the job market. Therese and Gary talked a lot, obviously, about their career development at BU and after. And our alumni help our graduates step into the job market. So QS rankings, THE rankings as well. So we have that as a backup to the accreditations. Internationalization is part of our school's DNA. We have 250 partners from around the world. We select our partners very carefully because we are judged by the company that we keep. We are judged by the company that we keep. So we are very careful about the quality of our international partners. As Therese mentioned, very international student body. In a normal year, not a COVID year, in a normal year, we have more than 500 international students in the business school. That includes exchange students and full-time degree-seeking international students. They're very international. Now, these services I list here, this is some of the services which we offer to our international students. These are from the School of Business. So the university will give you additional services as an international student. But we are very special in the business school because we have a dedicated team for internationalization, a team of staff to support international students. And there's a list of the things that we support you with. Pre-arrival, meet and greet, orientations, outings, networking. We've been arranging all the quarantine for our students. Hopefully September we won't need quarantine, but who knows? So that's an example of the diversity that we have in 2021, 2022. Students from 39 countries are represented in the School of Business. I said when I became Associate Dean, I wanted internationalization to be part of our DNA. And central to that DNA is the word diversity, diversity. And I'm always telling my staff, Alison will be tired of hearing about this, the importance of that word diversity. If a university doesn't have diversity, it is not a university, in my view. It must have diversity. And the reason diversity is so important is because you learn more from people who are different from yourself than you learn from people who are the same as yourself. You learn more from people who are different from yourself than you learn from people who are the same as yourself. So it really matters when you come to the School of Business. It matters not just the person teaching you, but who is sitting beside you in the classroom, your classmates. So these are the fleet of, I'm okay for time. These are the fleet of TPG programs that we have available this year. So there are 10 programs there: accounting, human resources, accounting and finance, economics. Professor Su talked about the BM program, MScBM. That's the FT rank program. Corporate governance, data analytics, entrepreneurship, fintech, and marketing for the creative economy. Now, I guess that a lot of you are interested in our scholarships. So let me finish off by talking about scholarships. Okay, I'll finish in a minute, talking about scholarships. The School of Business, as I said, we want internationalization as part of our DNA, and we have a strong drive for diversity. We back that up with resources, not only the team of staff that I have in the School of Business, but scholarships. We invest more in scholarships in our school, I believe, than any of the other schools in HKBU, maybe even in Hong Kong. So let me talk about the scholarships that we offer in the School of Business. Firstly is our flagship scholarship, the International Postgraduate Scholarship, IPS. IPS is full tuition fee waiver plus a living allowance. That is for 1 year, that is not monthly. Living allowance of $12,820 US dollars per annum. This scholarship is very, very generous. You know that. I'm sure the people here tonight have done their homework and they've looked at other scholarships around the world. I don't think you will find a scholarship as generous as this one. It's not very common. It is so generous, frankly, we may not be able to offer this scholarship forever. So I would encourage you to apply for this scholarship as soon as possible. Next year, the year after, that may not be so widely available as it is this year. So that's a flagship scholarship. We also have other scholarships, diversity contribution scholarship, which may be full or half tuition fee waiver. And then we have at a lower level, some entrance awards and admission scholarships. So the flagship is the IPS, the most generous one, then the diversity scholarship, and then some entrance awards as well. You do not need to make a separate application for a scholarship. That's important. We don't want to create too much paperwork for applicants. If you are an international student from outside Greater China and you apply to any of those programs there, you will be automatically considered for a scholarship. Okay, so you don't need to make a separate application. Just apply for one of these programs. And finally, ready, get set, go. Okay. The visa, the university will help you with that, the visa application process. Basically, we are trying to clear the path. We're trying to make the application process and the transition to Hong Kong as smooth and simple as possible. So we will help you with the visa process. Cost of living, how low can you go? We estimate that 10,000 a month is what a normal person would need living in Hong Kong, whatever a normal person is. But 10,000 a month would get you somewhere reasonable to live and food and pocket money. Okay, 10,000 Hong Kong dollars. We have accommodation on campus, and the university also supports students in finding accommodation off campus. Okay, so thank you to all the attendees. Thank you to Federica. Thank you to my colleagues, and thank you to our two star alumni, Gary and Therese, for sharing from the horse's mouth tonight. Okay, thank you, Federica.
Thank you so much. And as anticipated, we are now ready to go through to some of the questions that we receive. We will do our best to answer the majority of the questions, but we will be also sharing with you an email address after this event. So in case there are some questions that we're not able to answer today, or in case you have any sort of doubts, we'll be able to go through over the next few days. So one of the questions for the Professor Huang that was sharing with us the great presentation about leaders. So they're asking us what if a business leader is too much emotional and take decision based on his emotional state? Is there any sort of solution to that? What would you advise?
So I think from what I'm understanding about this literature on leadership and leaders' emotional intelligence, emotional ability can be trained. That's why you see worldwide, many firms spend millions of money, even billions on leadership training. Many of them targeted on this how to train a leader to manage, regulate their own emotions, right? So that is a part of the training.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Gary, one of the questions, so we receive lots of students' questions regarding different backgrounds in case, they want to apply to the school, in case they didn't have any sort of pre-knowledge. What do you think are the skills that the student that want to enter to HKBU should have, just generally speaking?
I would say it doesn't really matter if you're from different walks of life. The program could still be applicable to you, primarily because what you learn in the programs are intended to be, what's that word I'm looking for? Transferable skills across different industries after you go out and start working, right? And I think Mary also talked a little bit about this earlier, and I also agree. So regardless of where you're from, what you studied before, I would say maybe the most important thing is to have an open mind. be willing to learn, things that you didn't know before, new things, and just try to just do the best you can, because it's not just the school environment that would basically require this of you. All companies out there would also require the same thing: having an open mind, be willing to learn new things all the time. The world is always changing as well, especially in Hong Kong. So having an open mind and just being willing to learn and having a positive attitude, I think, would be the most important things.
Thank you so much, Gary. Mary, they had a question regarding living in Hong Kong. So they're asking if it's expensive. And another thing that they asked is regarding the seminar, the lesson that the professor just gave us at the beginning, if these sorts of classes are normal at HKBU School of Business, or what is your feedback on the approach on the learning?
Firstly, if it's expensive, well, given my background, so I'm coming from the Philippines. So I'm from the Philippines, where cost of living is, well, significantly lower than that of Hong Kong. But the thing is, I together with Gary, both of us were scholarship recipients, and it definitely helped us a lot with the cost of living in Hong Kong. So if you just live a bit frugally, you could actually live with the scholarship money alone. So do your best. If you really want to get into the program, just ramp up your CV and your accomplishments, and you don't have to worry about the expensive cost of living in Hong Kong. And as for the classes, I think the experiential case is quite new, because Gary and I didn't have that back then. And I think it's very interesting because right now you get to solve real world problems from companies who are actually experiencing them. But during our time, we had a lot of different group projects and also case studies, just many case studies for each of our classes. So we were actually required to visit sites, companies themselves, and to interview people from there. And it really helped us develop how our relationship skills. Basically, having to interview people from top management of a particular company is something that as a student could seem daunting at first. But thanks to that experience, I think it somehow prepared us for the interviews that we were going to have eventually by year end as well after our graduation. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Mary. So Professor Prendergast, we have Francesco from Italy, and he's asking us regarding scholarships, if English is, and then generally for the scholarships, but also for the program, if having a great knowledge of English is one of the requirements, and in general, what to do before submitting an application. Is there any sort of tips that you feel like sharing with the audience today?
Okay, thanks for the question. There are a number of general things. We have a fleet of top postgraduate programs. I listed 10 in my PowerPoint. There are a number of things we're looking for in all of the programs. Obviously, outstanding academic performance is one. So we require an undergraduate degree or equivalent for application. We interview applicants as well. So interview them in English. So a strong interview performance is required. Now, to the question of English, if your undergraduate degree is in English, you don't need to submit an English and IELTS result. But if your undergraduate degree is not in English, then you need to submit an IELTS result of at least 6.5 minimum for that. So tips, well, meet the application, meet the entry requirements for the programs. As I said, an undergraduate degree, you'll have an interview, an English test result if you didn't have English in your undergraduate degree. I don't know. Yeah, Professor Sue, would you like to augment anything? Professor Sue, anything about the application tips or?
Exactly. I also wanted to ask the professor. Thank you.
We look for students who show strong desire to learn and be open, because I think many of our programs, like MScBM programs, I think this we want to offer a unique experience for people, international students, to learn more about this part of the world, the business world in Asia, in Greater China. So there are a lot of new things for you if you show strong desire to learn and a capability to learn. You gain a lot.
Yeah, and regarding the scholarships, especially the IPS, these are very competitive scholarships. It's not easy to get an IPS scholarship, and we are not accepting students just based on their passport. You have to be exceptional. And what I always think about, when you offer a scholarship to someone is that in the classroom, there will be local students who are not getting a scholarship. And they will be asking themselves about the quality of the scholarship recipient who may be sitting beside them. So you really have to be outstanding, not just international, but an outstanding international student.
Thank you so much. So we opened our session with Professor Huang, who actually was giving us a speech about leadership. So we received a question regarding if you can tell us an example of a great leader that did great during the COVID situation. And also maybe you can help us answer the question regarding if these sorts of classes are, let's say, normal, like HKBU, so if someone gets to be admitted will benefit from those great lessons. I think your microphone is muted, sorry.
Yeah, so I think it's hard to assess the leadership in the whole process. So I can only tell you based on our research, because we look at the initial reactions of leaders. That's critical, right? So in any crisis of this scale, we really have a true test of leadership. All right. So good leaders can have the ability to predict or make sense of the crisis very quickly, and they act very quickly. So that's why we look at the first. So if we look at our data, some countries did a good job, like Korea. Some countries and regions like Taiwan, even Hong Kong was not bad, right? Hong Kong is not bad, right? But that has to do with something else. But at the beginning, some countries really fail to react, because some, you hear at the beginning in some countries the leader will say, "Oh, this is just a flu," right? That make you feel better, but that would create crisis. Okay, so I just the other one is New Zealand. The Prime Minister of New Zealand, I think in our data set from news, she did a good job. Yeah, even Australian and Prime Minister. So there are very good leaders. There are also bad leaders. I don't want to name bad leaders.
We only talk about positive today.
Yeah, you know who is the bad leader. So that. Yeah, is that right? Is that the question?
Absolutely. And one thing I wanted to ask, if these sorts of classes are, let's say, normal at HKBU School of Business, and if it's like, if students can benefit from those classes, which are, let's say, business cases, studies, or similar.
Yeah, compared to a few years ago, like Gary and Mary, we have made a lot of changes. We every year the school need to improve. Now we have many new professors, younger professors who are very good at research. More people bring their research, really fascinating research, cutting it into the classrooms. But at the same time, we also recruit some retired CEOs to teach our students. So the students can learn from scholarly work and also practical wisdom from our senior executives. So I think it's quite diverse. Diversity is crucial for university, right? Yeah.
Thank you so much. A question from Geneva asking us about bachelor in law. So someone who studied law during the bachelor degree, do you think can switch into a master in finance or business administration program? Do you think that this person has like the background is suitable? Maybe they can take some sort of pre-courses in order to be admitted. I don't know if the Professor Prendergast maybe would like to help us answering this.
Yeah, I mean, each program has their own admission requirements, but in general, we require an undergraduate degree or equivalent. We don't specify that it must be a degree in a particular area. And I can tell you from my own experience as a teacher that sometimes when students come to us with a business undergraduate degree, they can be closed-minded sometimes. They think they know everything about business and they've studied it already. So in some ways, it's an advantage not to have a business degree. It's my feeling as a teacher. Professor Xu? One?
Yeah, so So I think I don't have any strong view on this. So basically, I think I agree with Gerard. In general, when we admit students, when we consider students, we consider many things, not only their academic achievement, but their past experience and many other issues. So it's hard to say at this moment,
Thank you. We still have time for like a final question. So I know that Mary and Gary shared their experience with us, but so we have one of the students that is asking us if it's possible to stay in Hong Kong or in China after graduating, or if the majority of the students actually tend to go back to their own country. So maybe Mary and Gary can tell us more about your class, if the majority of the students actually stayed and got a job, or maybe they went back to their country, if there is any sort of insight that you'd like to share with us.
Okay, so you can actually stay in Hong Kong after graduation. So Hong Kong has this special IANG visa, which allows students to stay in Hong Kong after graduation. So for 1 year, you could do your own job search, even without an offer yet, you could stay there. And in our class, I think, I'm speaking for the international students. During our time, I think there were 5 or 6 who managed to stay in Hong Kong for at least 1 to 2 or 3 years before moving elsewhere. So they didn't necessarily go back to their home countries. Actually, some people I know actually relocated to a third country after graduating in Hong Kong and after staying there for a while. So maybe Gary could also share some insights.
No, I totally agree with Mary on this. So if you guys caught it during her presentation, we are both from the same graduating class, actually. I would say in our class at that time, about like around 1/3 or 4th was international students. And not all of them stayed in Hong Kong or even went to China afterwards. Some of them went back to their own countries, but some of them actually did stay in Hong Kong. And technically I'm one of them too. I'm from Canada, and I've been in Hong Kong ever since. So it really depends. And even if you do choose to stay in Hong Kong, it doesn't necessarily mean you stay here forever either. As Mary mentioned, some of our classmates ended up going to different countries. So if the question is more so, are there opportunities here for graduate students to work? I would say yes. It's definitely better than some other places in the world in terms of like opportunities and potential. I maintain that opinion. But it's also not a place that you have to stay here forever. There's opportunities everywhere as well. So it's something that you can take a look at, see if it's right for you. But there are opportunities here. That is what I think. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Prendergast or Huang. Is there anything else that you would like to add on these, or maybe other aspect that we didn't have the time to touch upon tonight?
Based on my understanding, many of the if the student wants to stay in Hong Kong, it's not that difficult. All right, at least in the last few years, except during the Hong Kong's job market is pretty good, and so. But then, if you find a good job, very good job, then that's still challenging. You need to demonstrate to the employer, potential employers that you're good. Right.
Thank you, Professor Prendergast.
Yeah, something very important that Gary and Mary talked about. The food. The food is great and it's not expensive.
Great. So I really like to thank you all for being with us connected. All of you for your question. They were great and actually very insightful. In case you have any sort of question from today onwards, we will be sharing with you an email which contains an email address that you can reach out in case you have any further questions. We also recorded the event, so in case you missed some part, you'll be able to rewatch it. I'd like to thank the professors Mary and Gary for staying with us connected, for your time and for sharing your very important experience. So we look forward to seeing you soon at the next live webinar. And thank you all for staying connected with us and for all of your questions. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.